Yes.
Jessica.
Hello.
Jessica, hello. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Beautiful, yes, beautiful souls who are watching. Thank you for being here. This is going to be awesome. We're talking about all the things that I know very little about. So I'm going to be learning just as much as everybody else. So I am so excited about this. Jessica, if you are cool with it, I would love to just get started with you talking about as much or as little of your story as you'd like, and then we'll talk about what you do and all that good stuff.
So, to prior to 2019, I was an educator. I was an English subject specialist in mainstream inner city schools in London, in England. And I was absolutely passionate about my work. I loved it, erring on the side of workaholism, working 100 hours a week, diagnosed at about 30 with ADHD. Really, what I was doing was I was had been taking cocaine on the weekends just to get my work done.
Wow.
And so it was a work thing. So somebody said, "Oh, you can get diagnosed." And people had always said I'd had ADHD, but I didn't get diagnosed, and my life was fine. Anyway, I went and got a private diagnosis from a psychiatrist in Harley Street because I could get dexamphetamine. So it meant I was getting pure
Mm,
speed, right?
hmm.
Which changed everything. Like I was like, wow, I'm on fire. I'm amazing. And I was working even harder and harder and harder because I loved what I did. Like I was literally
Yeah.
so obsessed with my work and creating curriculum and investigating and creating reform and leading schools and but so hard on
Wow.
this thing. And taking the decks every day was great, and I did it from 2015 up until 2018, and by that point I was starting to get tired.
Mm,
I was leading a school, I was a consultant in a school, and I brought it was in challenging circumstances, and I brought it from requires improvement to good, but almost single-handedly. And this is so relevant when we get into human design. So uh I'd also, on the sidelines, on one hand, I had this vision for education, and I was a leader, and I was modeling, great practice and training staff, and a respected, educator for children who were inspired and motivated to learn, and all of the things. Even taking kids into my home to teach, and getting like outstanding grades for kids who were living in deep poverty, right? Because I was so passionate. But uh, on the sideline, there was also another aspect to my life. I was living these multiple lives, and I'd grown up in a city. So although I was working, I had links to very wealthy people and business people and educators and normal people. I also had a foot in the door with gangsters and drug dealers and just normal people to me, but
right.
this spectrum of society. And because of my own childhood and my own what I came to understand about subconscious and the nature of creating reality and how
Hmm.
we construct and our perceptions of things, I was also always attracting really quite abusive and negative sexual or intimate
Hmm.
partners.
Hmm.
And so on my life was getting, it was bubbling over, and I kept, when the universe just keeps, I call it, I was being a bitch slapped in the face by the universe.
Yes.
you know what happened was I was working really hard. I had a lot of negative elements around me. I was imbalanced in my relationships in every aspect. In
Hmm.
work, I was imbalanced. In my in intimate relationships, my friendships were imbalanced. So one day, in 2018 November, I entered the dark night of the soul, and I really, like, suddenly it was like I was completely numb. I
Yes.
had no interest in life. I had no interest in teaching, and I suddenly realized, and I'd something really, a couple of traumatic things had happened as well,
Hmm.
that led to this point where of like complete, not, I wouldn't call it breakdown, but it was a shutdown. And so
Hmm.
I reached out to a coach, and she came to my house and she gave me a piece of paper and she said, if you could be, do, or have anything that you desired, what would you do? And you've got 90 seconds. And I literally sat there and I had no idea.
Mm.
I was so dissociated and disconnected from my own desires, my own needs, who I was, who
Yes.
am I really? And
Yes.
that's the core question that led us into human design and leads many into human design. But just to break it down a little bit further, I gave up my job. I I flew to Thailand on the 26th of December, and I'd also been guided that I wasn't aware
Hmm.
of this, but I was being
Yes.
guided to, and I
Hmm.
ended up in a little village called Sritanu in Kopanyang, and I was surrounded by healers, shamans. So I
Yes.
began doing Reiki. I began receiving Reiki. I had a massive ascension flu. I didn't know that what that was at the time,
Yeah.
and literally I was there. I'd booked for 4 weeks, and I went to get some EFT tapping, and this guy, and I wanted to stay another 4 weeks. And this guy, and this is so the guy said to me, and I sat there and I was telling him like some really dark things that had happened, but very matter of fact, which again is in my chart. I'm here to deal with shock and crises, and it's part of my evolution and awakening process to
Hmm.
awakening. But I sat there and I said, I would love to stay another 4 weeks because I realized I was exhausted. I didn't realize I did actually was at the point like I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
And he said, well, why don't you? And I was like, well, I can't. Like, I don't have the cash. He's like, that's just a belief. And the
Mm.
moment he said that, it just licked a bell, just went off in my. It was a cosmic alarm bell, and I suddenly started to connect with this concept of beliefs and creating reality. But later that day, a woman that I'd been, meeting and for coffee or whatever, introduced me to Abraham Hicks, and I was like,
Mm.
and so I began listening. Again, this is entirely so within that, all of the synchronicities happened. My angels
Yes.
started communicating with me. I stayed another 4 weeks, and it was just my life became one long synchronicity. And I ended up back in London. I I was crazy I was like going deep on this decluttering thing. And then even your Zoom call today was 333, right? So I
Wow.
started this,
Yeah.
yeah.
That happens to me all the time. Yes. Yes. I have a journal of like signs and synchronicities and angel numbers that I've just been recording over the years. That's so fun.
Yeah, and this is the key to everything, that we
Yes.
can really get very present, be very conscious, awake and aware, and really live a very extraordinary life. And so I'd been guided to do all this clearing, and I was using affirmations, and I felt good. I felt happy. I felt renewed. Actually, a lot had
Mhm.
been lifted, a lot of energy had been cleared, and I was doing, unbeknownst to myself, I was doing this identity work, and my self concept was changing and transforming.
Yes.
And one day I was sitting at my table and I got a download and it said book a flight to Costa Rica. And at this point, I've got no savings, I've got no money, I've got a little bit on a credit card. And so I Google it, and all of the tickets were like £1,000 or more. And this one ticket was £300.
Wow.
So I booked the ticket, and straight after, my guide said, because remember, it was new to me at that time, this
Hmm.
connecting with the non-physical realm. And they immediately said, you did the right thing. You're learning to interpret divine guidance. So I was like, great. And so I looked up a place to stay. Again, I found this Nazara B&B retreat, and it was, again, the price was just so low. And I get there, and and on the night before I get there, I go to my mum's house, who was living in near Gatwick at the time, which was the airport. And I go to bed, I set my alarm for about, I think, like 3 a.m. And the cab driver was coming for about, I don't know I can't remember the times exactly, but say 3:30. And I overslept. But what happened was, in my, like, to wake me up, I had again this in my third eye area, this
Mm.
searing red, 333. And I woke up, jumped up, like, I was like, oh my God, I'm late. I ran downstairs, and the guy was just sitting there on his car smoking a cigarette like this. And he goes, I thought sometimes I leave, but I just felt to stay. And I was like, thank you so much. I ran up, got a shower, jumped in a cab. But my mum had given me The Alchemist. You've read The
Mm.
Alchemist? Right? Yeah. And
Yes.
so I read it on the plane, and it's my story. I'm like, I am
Yes.
happening
Yeah.
to me, it's happening. And I get to Costa Rica, and I get to my place. And guess what the door says? I've got goosebumps talking about it.
I've had them this whole time.
It says, come in, follow the signs. And I'm like, you're kidding me.
This is your sign.
So I'm living in this jungle, like no one else is there. It's just me.
Awesome.
I'm surrounded by jungle. And this is where I realize I don't have ADHD. In my
Yes.
time in Costa Rica, and oh, by the way, this is the killer. I'm there for 11 days. But on the ninth day, like again, pure synchronicities, da 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 da. On the ninth day, I had a dream because I also get a lot of information in dreams. So
Hmm.
54 is my conscious sun. We'll talk about this when we go into Gene Keys.
Okay.
But we in Gene Keys we have the outside of the profile, and they're called four spheres. They're all spheres.
Okay.
And so we have life, work, evolution, radiance, and purpose. That's the
Okay.
first entrance. And it's also the incarnation cross in human design. And your incarnation cross is your purpose. So it's the top four gates in your human design chart. So ultimately, when we are aligned, we are always being guided and living towards our purpose. So 54, if your life, work, and your brand is 54, in Gene Keys, there are three levels of consciousness: the shadow, the gift frequency, and the siddhi, which is not the same as the psychic siddhis of the yogis, but it's just called the highest level of consciousness. And 54, the highest level is ascension. And in 54, and the gift frequency is aspiration.
Hmm.
So it's all about it's mysticism. It's all over. It's mysticism all over. And my incarnation cross is the right angle cross of penetration, which is the same as Yogananda. It's the same as Tesla. It's the
Wow.
same as a lot of these mystics. Like the 54 is like the highest mystical gate, although there are many other mystical gates. But anyway, I
Wow.
say all that to say, at this point in Costa Rica, I'm awakening. Oh, my
Hmm.
purpose sphere happens to be 51, which is again the highest level is awakening. The second level is I think it's initiation. I can't remember at this point. And so and sorry, actually, I think it's important to mention the radiance sphere is what keeps us healthy, and
Hmm.
it's also your design earth. I know this might not make sense to a lot of people. Maybe we could do another one where we're actually doing a lesson and breaking down the chart, but
That would be awesome.
yeah. But the key is that your design earth is what keeps you healthy. And so for me, mine's 57, the highest form of psychic awareness, the highest form of intuition. But if you're not present, and I've looked back in my life and there was a lot of intuition, but there was a lot of so now it's like through the roof. Anyway,
Yes. The awareness
um,
changes it all. Yeah.
right. And it means you can navigate this plane and live the magic. I call it
Yes.
the magic, or the
Yes.
magic carpet ride of life. So at this point, I'm in Costa Rica. I'm there for 9 days. I have a dream of a crab. And I wake up and I immediately wake up and think, oh, let me walk to the beach. And I was like 3 seconds from the beach. So I walk to the beach and there's the same crab from my dream. So I recognize
Wow.
it and it stops and looks at me. I look at it. And again, another thing was at this
You
point,
looking at me?
and I'd been starting to become aware of how animals and connected to animals
Our
I was.
conscious. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I just stop and I focus, and it climbs up this wall. It climbs up this cliff, and it scatters past me, and like climbs, gets halfway up, and it drops all the way to the bottom, and then it climbs all the way up again, and it goes off. And so that to me was, I was like I went home, and I'll send you via email afterwards. I channeled immediately a short story, and it was called The
Mm.
Crab and the Giant Obstacle. And what it did, it was told me that it was time to face some deep obstacles and to fulfill my potential. And I
It's
so
amazing.
after and I as I was brushing my teeth as well that morning, heart opened up in the water, and that's
Mm.
another way. So what happened was I decided I had to face my initiation at that point to give away my home. I had social housing, so government housing, um, and all my possessions. So I rang a friend and I said, just get rid of it all. And I then had nothing. So all I had was the sandals on my feet, the clothes on my back, a little bit of cash, and my openness to be guided and to surrender
Mm.
to
Which is all
synchronicity
you need.
and what could happen. Yeah. So I wanted,
Unbelievable.
yeah, yeah, right.
Unbelievable.
And literally I haven't got them in here, but I've got all these hearts from that journey, feathers and hearts. That became
Yes.
my right, feathers and hearts, feathers and hearts. And I just had such a beautiful ride. I ended up in Jamaica, Malaysia, back to Thailand, and all miraculously, and facing these challenges along the way to test my level of intuition. Or
Mm.
so uh going back to the ADHD, so my time in Costa Rica, where I really was around no other auras. I was
Hmm.
really alone. I was very solitary, and I was doing meditation. I was grounding. I was connecting with my own spirit and my own being. Did a huge amount of shadow work,
Mm.
which I continue to do. You know, I will
Hmm.
continue to face myself. But what happened was I realized, hang on a minute, I don't have ADHD. Like I'm because I realized I wasn't living in alignment with how I like to create or how I like to like I've not had an alarm on my phone since 2008, since work. So I've never had an alarm on my phone again. You know, I
No.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
I don't even know how to process that. That's insane.
yeah.
Wow.
So what happened was like in Thailand, it was September. And by the way, I started at this point, I met a cobra in the street, a real cobra. And so I was having dreams of snakes. And so it was like Kundalini was starting to rise and starting to,
Yes.
and it was a really beautiful time, a lot of mystical experiences. And so I'm at a fruit party. One of the very few times that I go out and mingle with people because it was such an intensely solitary time. And this guy comes up and he says, "Hey, have you heard about human design? What's your type?" Eric. And I said, "No, I'm a manifester." Because I didn't, he was like reading them off. And when I heard manifester, I was like, "Oh, well, I'm a manifester." And he was like, "No, no, no, not like that." Anyway, ran my chart, gave me this book called, I can't remember the name of it, but it was by Cheaton Parker.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, I'll share it with you afterwards. And I read it and I was like, oh, everything makes sense. So I realized I was a projector. I was a 1-3. So my profile was giving me a huge, no wonder I was an investigator. I was a researcher. I'd been on the right path, but I'm here to guide. I'm here to
So
lead.
is this the same thing as your Dharma,
Yeah.
essentially? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So human design. Okay. So Gene Keys helps you to decondition and expand your consciousness so that you can realign with your and live your individuated pathway and follow your dharma and really live out your highest purpose on all
Gotcha.
dimensions of being. Human design is a system that also leads you to that direction, but it's more mechanical and practical in the information that it provides you. So
Okay.
let's go into what it all means. In human design, the human design system really gives you it's a synthesis of four different systems. So it's the Hindu chakra system.
Hmm.
So we've got seven chakras, but in human design we have nine centers:
Mm, mm,
ajna, the throat, the G center, which is called the magnetic monopole, which only attracts and never repels. And this is really important. Then you've got the will center. So, what happened was at a certain point in time, as we evolved as a species, the heart split into two. So, we now have what we call the will center and the G. And then we have the sacral, which is the center of life force, and only generators and manifesting generators have this defined, colored in, and this is consistent. So 70% of the world are pouring out and pumping out this life force energy, and it's the energy to work, it's the energy to build, energy to create.
create. Yes.
The manifester, the reflector, and the projector do not have this defined. So let's at this point go back to human design shows us where we are operating as who we are not until we develop
Mm,
awareness. And that's why most people have an awakening or have a deep soul urge uh, to know who they are, or have an emotional breakdown or an existential crisis or
hmm.
dark night of the soul, because for so long they have been living in a way that isn't true for who they are.
Yes. Yes.
And human design gives us the accurate information that can really help them on their path back to self. So
Fascinating.
open sacral is constantly taking cocaine or speed or coffee because we don't know when enough is enough. So
Yes.
the mind,
Is
where
just
we are, yeah, where we are open in human design is where our mind will identify and create a story and attach meanings and stories. And that's what we call the not self or the inauthentic self. So many projectors get to 30 and burn out and realize they
mm,
cannot work 9 to 5 because they're not designed to do.
mm, mm,
And the whole systems that we've created, education, work, all of
all
these
of
things
it.
are not designed for a non-sacral being. So let's go down. We go to the root center, then we have the spleen, then we have the emotional solar plexus. So these 9 centers are energy centers and they all have thematics. They all give us huge amounts of information about how we are uniquely designed to attract and how we are designed to impact others, because where we're colored in, we are pouring that energy out. So anyone who,
Mm,
so for example, if you have a defined emotional solar plexus, and I am open in my emotional solar plexus, which I am, I I'm an empath. The only empaths in the world are people who are open in that center, and what they're doing
mm,
when they're not aware is that they're receiving all this emotional frequency and all this emotional energy, but they're
yeah.
holding on to it and they're not, the mind's identifying with it. So they're not realizing it
That is
doesn't
not
belong.
even theirs. Or
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. 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 Wow.
Yeah. So we have the 9 centers, and each center has a not self strategy. So a behavior, a predictable pattern, many predictable patterns actually, that we can see play out in life. So, for example, with the open will, we see people with deep lack of self-worth, always trying to prove
Mm,
themselves. So we see underwork, undercharging, overcommitting, overwork, and you saw
yes.
that. So
Yes.
everything that was happening to me in my career was me living out the not self in my chart, taking all these drugs to keep up, never being paid appropriately,
Mm,
like trying to prove how great I am, trying to be seen and recognized, never
yes.
having my ideas stolen, all these things
Mm,
suddenly became so clear. And so that is, I mean, it's okay. So we've got all the centers, and we could go into all the themes, right? Then you've got type. So when you come to sorry, we're talking about the synthesis. So we've got the 9 centers, astrology. So
mhm.
each side of the chart. So on the one side, you've got personalities, your conscious personalities. It's
Okay.
more about who you will identify with. But on each of those, it has a planetary aspect: the sun, the earth, Mercury,
Mhm.
the moon, Uranus, la la la. And each of those have a gate. So there's 64 gates which correspond to the I Ching, the yeah.
Wow.
So the Chinese I Ching. And so those gates all have thematics. They all have a story about how that energy operates. And that energy operates. So human design is a dualistic system. It operates on a spectrum of energy. So 54 can be driven and ambitious, or it can be apathetic and not
Mm,
ambitious at all.
mm.
And so
That makes sense.
again, right. So what we see again when people come to me to work with alignment, either as you know CEOs or anyone who's really been living a life that they've got material wealth, but they're not fulfilled, or they've
Mm,
got really like 7 8 figure businesses, but they're working so hard, it's like they're burning out. We
right.
come back to, okay, well, let's get into alignment. And then suddenly we see the story and we see the predictable patterns and we see how their energies can become back into alignment, where they're in the shadow, where they're out of alignment, where they are in alignment. So it's very,
Mm,
very clear. And on the other side, it's the design side. So it's our unconscious. It's it's who other people will recognize, but we won't. And so,
mm.
yeah.
Fascinating.
Yes. And then, so you've got the planets. Each planet gives us, again, a new level of nuance and story in the expression of the gate. The gates related to the I Ching. The centers relate to the chakra system. And then we've got the Kabbalah tree of life, the Judaic
Mm,
Kabbalah tree of life. And finally, quantum mechanics.
yes.
Yeah,
I love this. I'm so glad you're talking about all of this. This is great.
I know. And so I read the book, and I was like immediately like, this is amazing. It makes sense. Da 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 da. But again, at that point, I'm still quite burnt out. I'm tired, and I'm on
Mm,
my journey. And I realize, because I'm a 1-3, so my role. So again, when somebody comes to human design for the first time, there are three bits of information that they need. You need to know your type. You need to know your inner authority, which is your decision making strategy. Again, people are running around making decisions from the mind.
mhm.
Trained, Descartes said, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
This is not the case. We are
Yes.
on the material plane. We are not designed to use our mind as a decision making center. It's a pressure center. It's a
Mm,
center for conceptualizing ideas. It's a center for processing, receiving information. Our inner authority is the only method for making reliable and aligned decisions for ourselves. So I'm splenic. It means that I get you, like when you were getting do you know what your type is?
no,
Okay.
I don't.
Oh,
There's no way.
I wish I'd run your chart before the session, but
Yeah, I would. We'll do it.
yeah.
Sure.
So
Whenever you're not busy.
I'm not busy, but this is exactly the core of my work. Create your life in alignment so that things come easily and effortlessly. And I need spaciousness. Again, when you know your chart and your energetics and how you create, you will craft and design your whole life and your business. So that's why I've come up with self-actualized business. So we're
Yes.
creating business from the inside out. We're coming to who am I really? And how do I best create? And how do I interact with others, because human design gives us huge amounts of information about our role in a team. But that's what I wanted to get onto. So the three bits of information is your type. There are 5 types: the manifesting generator, the manifester, the reflector, and the projector. Each of these
Mm,
types play a very specific role in the puzzle piece of society. So many gens and generators are the only ones who have life force energy. They're sacral. They go to bed tired. They wake up
mhm,
full of energy and ready to go. They're pumping that energy out. The
mhm.
projector and the 3 other non-sacrals do not have that. So we have to work smarter and not harder. We have to leverage our knowledge. We are here to, so each type has a specific role, which is, like for the projector, it's to guide others. It's how we see things is what we're designed to be recognized for. But then it gets even more beautiful because our profile gives us again new levels of meaning about how we are designed to operate in a way that makes us grounded, that gives us security, that supports us to thrive. So I'm a 1-3. The one line has a keynote of the researcher or the investigator. So the role of the one line in business or in life is always going to be the expert. They're here to be an authority. They're here to get a solid enough foundation in knowledge and a knowledge base or a subject specialism that
Huh.
then opens the pathway for them to be recognized. If you're a third line, you're going to be an innovator. You're here to create change. You're here to test and trial and learn from your mistakes. Your life is actually about mistakes.
Hmm.
Because from that
That's probably me
you bring
for real
forward.
though.
I can't wait to see it. But you bring forward new ways of being and doing things,
My
right? And
Dharma I know is a visionary. The
fifth
first one's
line.
visionary, the second is teacher. So it would make sense if this was
So you're a fifth line. We know
fifth
that you're
line.
definitely a fifth line. Maybe you're
Okay.
a 5-1. Maybe you're a 5-1 because the teacher. But the
Hmm.
fourth line is also the archetype of a teacher as well. So the fours are here to learn things and externalize it to their network. They are social beings. Like
Hmm.
they're here to they're here to be the connectors. And
Hmm.
again, once you know your role, there's. I mean, I use it in 2 ways. I help people to create alignment and I help people to create visions for their lives and align messaging and marketing. Because how you show up on social media and how you create in your business is very clear in your chart and your how you position your content, all
Yes.
these things. Right.
I can't wait to do this with you.
Yeah.
Seriously. And I'm thinking of like 10 people I'm going to recommend to you.
Amazing. So the type is important because it teaches us how it teaches us how you're here to design to create. But your type also tells you what your inner authority is. And so actually that's not quite true, but there's levels to that. So generators are designed to respond. Manifestors are designed to initiate. And so what we see again as well in society is a lot of generators initiating and trying to create things, but not, and it's not working because that's not how they're designed to create. The projector has been conditioned to just do it, go out there. There's a lot of frustration. So each type has their own emotional theme, which gives us information about when we're not making the right decision for ourselves, or when we've said yes to something that's not right. So for the projector, it's bitterness. For the generator, it's frustration, you know. But on the other side of that, when they're in alignment, when they're creating from response, when they're inspiring others, building their knowledge or whatever, they are in satisfaction. So you can, so there, again, there's these signposts that help us to get very clear information from ourselves. So we've got type, inner authority. There's different levels. So there's different ways that we make decisions. And I also want to say my own personal theory here. As a mystic and as a woman who came to human design and deconditioned and did a lot of my own life path before jumping and diving into to develop mastery of the system in order to teach and help others and guide others, I have come to this conclusion that that the decision-making strategy that we are taught in human design, which is called strategy and authority, so how you're designed to create and how you're designed to make the decision. We just touched on that briefly, i.e. the generator is here to wait to respond, and then when they get the sacral body, yes, no, in their body, they then go ahead, right? What I call this survival intuition. Once you get into alignment, you are really, there are multiple ways of receiving intuitive knowledge and information and working in the quantum field. And so that's the very first level, I think, for people. But then once you start getting into your psychic awareness or your synchronicities and this and that, you can, I believe that there's beyond that. You can feel into energy. But when we teach people human design and when they come to really enter it, it's about experimenting with the system. So if you ever have a coach who tells you you can only do this and you can only think this way and makes you like boxed in, run, you know, because human design is not the be all and the end all of the whole. I'm not a dogmatic person. I cannot stand dogma. And so that's my style. I teach people from a very broad spectrum of metaphysics and awareness and how to be empowered to know themselves on a deeper level. And yes, that is the aim of human design, but there can be pockets of it.
Right.
I said this, Ra said that, could it only be that? Well, they can only teach from their level of consciousness. So we've got the type, your inner authority, decision making, and strategy. So strategy, we've just touched on that, like how. So a lot of human design is about waiting. So learning, and this is where gene keys comes in. So in fact, even the manifestor who can just initiate, if you're emotionally defined, you still have to wait. And if you are for the non-sacral beings, we have like cycles of rest and cycles of creation. So, you know, there are times of waiting to the life experience. So many people feel frustrated, they're trying to push, things don't work. But once you start living your design, and this is where I love the gene keys more than anything, because you start to see how your shadow frequencies can play. So for example, if you're very, very impatient and you haven't learned to just accept what is in the moment, and say for that, you might have gene key 5, and that's a real theme of that gene key. What we see is if you've got like 1 billion people on the planet who are operating in that shadow and that distortion, rather than being feeling safe, feeling grounded, knowing they're supported, knowing that they can receive guidance and they can use their imagination to co-create and then wait, see what shows up, then respond. You know, you get a lot of this dissonance on the planet. And so a big
Yes.
part of my work is not only do I want to help people to create wealth and well-being, I want to create harmony. I want people to
Yeah.
create and learn how to create. And because the more of us that are living in our alignment, the less the world is going to be
Yes.
weird frequency.
I get images of just like what the earth will look like once we're all in our own flow. It's fascinating how the resistance, how you think you don't want it, and then once you step into it, it's like, oh my gosh, where has this been?
Yeah,
I can't wait to
exactly.
work with you.
But I also think that you've hit on the brilliant nail on the head about the word resistance. That
Yeah.
is, again, one of the massive outcomes of living our designs
Mm,
is releasing that resistance. So we're
mm.
not in that state of resistance. But, you know, and like some people are here to start things, other people are here to finish things. I'm a starter. I'm here to start, initiate, create, but I'm not here to follow through. I'm not. So that's why, again, people get my spark of energy. But, you know, having to, and that's another reason why you would then go to the stimulants because I was forcing myself to
To
just
follow
work.
through. Yes,
Yeah.
that makes total
And
sense.
and so when you get clear on your talents, your genius, your skills, you can create and you can serve the world in your
Yes.
in your genius, you know?
Yes. Yes. And it's then it's beautiful for you, it's effortless for you and for the person or people receiving. Yeah, it just yes. What fascinates me with all of this is the commonalities across the board. It one, like myself included, a number of my guests, and I keep saying I'm trying to be mindful of my words, and I say I have ADHD because I wasn't diagnosed for a very long time, very similar to your story. Like it just got to a point where one, I wasn't feeling good using it. And I had heard someone on a podcast say that the moment she stopped drinking and using drugs over the counter, whatever, um, her intuition was through the chart. So I heard that and I was like, okay. We are getting rid of any prescription drugs for ADHD. So that Costa Rica, I mean, everything you have just said, it's just fascinating. My guests have just come to me when they come to me. When I say that, I mean whether I've reached out to them or they reached out to me in terms of the timing of when they end up falling in my lap. It has worked out so beautifully in terms of the progression of like what the first guest was saying to the next, the next, the next. It just the flow. It's like I feel like I'm gonna look back at the videos like 5 years from now, and it's just gonna be this like beautiful story that
Yes.
actually works.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I have to know for one, have you tried ayahuasca at any of these places that you've been? Do you have any
No,
desire to?
we don't. I did a year of shamanic training
Okay.
without drugs, only with the drum. And I personally, that's not my evolutionary pathway. Like this lifetime, that's just not my path. I understand it's a great path for many who are called to it.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, but
I
that's
know I
great.
am. That's why I'm asking. Where did
Yeah, no.
you study?
So I studied with a lady called Bonnie Minnis,
Okay.
um, and I did it online. It was during lockdown. I did
Ah,
it. So we
okay.
would meet every Saturday. There was a small group of us, and so we did it online. And her teachers, her lineage was Stephen Farmer, Nikki Scully from the Egyptian.
Okay.
So these people, and somebody else, I can't remember their name, but so that oh, she's really quite known. I can't remember her name. But anyway, that's her lineage and her teachers. So I
Okay.
learned from this lady, and so we would do journeys. When we learned the foundations of the journey, like how to work with our spirit animals, how to retrieve information, how to use different healing tools and techniques and things like that. But really, what I learned was because prior to that, I'd gone deep into meditation, so I could work with my angels and my spirit guides, and ultimately over time, it's just been more and more and more about me getting into alpha state to retrieve
Mm,
information.
mm-hmm.
So now I'm doing quantum jumping, which again is just which is great, and I'm having
It's
so many, because what I'm here to teach is flow over force. So again, in Gene Keys and in our human design chart, design Mars is our vocation. It's your genius. So when you look at the gate and you look at the thematics of that gate and the story, you're going to see how throughout your life you have faced the challenges associated with those themes. And mine is really all about that. It's about boundaries. It's about using overusing will rather than energetics. It's about
mm,
having, not, yeah, it's really about energetic mastery. And so my whole journey has, I've been drawn to metaphysics, quantum creation, you know, working with the mind in the way that I say it was designed to be created. And I'm not the first to say that, but when we look at human design and we start to see that how the Ajna really, and how it can be an interface to the quantum field, and how Neville Goddard's been teaching this, it's using your
mm,
imagination, it's
mm-hmm.
visualization. It's but when you get into alpha, you can go to different dimensions, you can
Mm,
retrieve information, you can work with your spirit guides, and ultimately that's all it is. So whichever angle you go, whether it's by doing ayahuasca or whether it's doing hypnosis or just meditation, like it's all leading to
yes.
the same thing.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think for the ayahuasca, it's a fast track to deep healing.
Yeah,
My
I
healing,
think plant medicine in general for sure. If there's anybody that has tried meditation and it's too blocked for them or whatever, if they just there's a lot of people that I think just kind of need that catalyst to like just open up the door so that they can see what's there, and then that will kind of keep them, intrigued and go. I mean,
yeah,
usually once you have an experience like that, there's like no going back. Um,
yeah,
and as long as it's done in the right environment with the right people, with the right intention, all of that, I think beautiful things can come out of it. But yeah, I've been thinking about ayahuasca for a long time, and I go back and forth. And um, really, the things that were stopping me in the past were false beliefs. So, yeah, I was just curious to see if you had tried it, or where is Bonnie located? Do you
oh,
know?
I don't know, but I
Okay,
have a lot of trusted resources that I can refer you to.
awesome.
So yeah, Mama Aya, if you're everyone who's called to ayahuasca gets this calling that you've got. It's a calling. And actually, I flips around, but that's what I was going to say about the Gene Keys route. So my path is ascension, like that's my. And lots of people say they have ascension, but mine is specifically the Kundalini pathway. It is that. And so what I was going to say is that people can be conditioned into spiritual paths, which is why
Mm,
you need to be into your own mind. Like for
yeah.
you, it's ayahuasca.
Yeah.
For me, when I had my awakening or started my awakening, I was dreaming of the snakes, cobras. I literally met a cobra. I met a cobra skin. Like there's all these things. And when I finally came to Gene Keys in 2021, it's a very specific pathway. Now,
Hmm.
many people are conditioned to believe that they should be doing, breath work, Kundalini yoga, and da, 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 da. But it's a spontaneous thing. It will happen
Yes.
naturally, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, if I was the way I'm guided to evolve is like through yoga, through physical somatic practice, da 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 da. But the point is that's not the only way. So there are many pathways to evolving consciousness and spiritual pathways. And so the point I'm trying to make is don't be conditioned out of your pathway. If you know on a
Yeah.
deep soul level
Yeah.
that ayahuasca is the path,
Yes.
that is the path. Yeah.
Yes. What I've been playing around with is, and this is someone that I've worked with for years and trust her through and through. I've been basically taking when I feel like I'm getting a message, following my intuition correctly, if I'll take it to one of my spiritual leaders, and basically she's a channel, and I will ask her, and just depending on their answers, just to kind of test myself. And I'm blown away by, I mean, even the last session I had with her, I was just like, okay. And she even said it. She was like, you got this. You got this. Stop testing yourself. It's so important to really just listen to yourself throughout this. And I think community is great. I mean, it's great. You do
Yeah,
need that too. It is a balance, but you at the end of the day, you got to do what feels right here.
yeah,
This is the
exactly.
only person that's going to know what's best for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I do think community is so important. You know, we are
Yes.
here to be interdependent. We are here to work together. You
Yes.
know, actually, though, in human design, we there is something called circuitry. So in our chart, we have certain circuits, right? So actually, there's individual circuitry, there's integration, there's tribal, and there's collective.
Hmm.
And again, they all. So if you have somebody with a lot of collective or tribal energy in their chart, with someone with who is highly individual, they're going to clash because that
Absolutely.
tribal person's thinking, you know, it's really important to be part of the tribe and follow the group rule, but that individual person's not meant to do that. And so again, we can be conditioned into this, and you know, so
Yes.
that's something else to think about. Yes, you know, I my only channel. Let's see if I can show it while I'm here. Actually, we could have done that, but it doesn't see. Okay. I didn't think, but what? Don't even look at my desktop. Ah, it's so messy. So this is the human design chart. This is the 9 centers we were talking about: the
Hmm.
head, the ajna, the throat, the G, the will. So when I was talking about channels, I was just circuits just now. So where we are defined, so where I'm colored in, that is who I am, my authentic self. That those two things, love and direction, and survival and wellness. So not like the split and the 5710, the 57 is the most intuitive of the chart, but we've got the 61, and actually there's lots of gates that have specific superconscious connections, angelic connections, different ways of working with our clair skills. So but when I was talking about circuitry just now,
Hmm.
this is called the integration circuit. So I only have this, meaning this is the one place that I can be consistent in who I
Hmm.
am, which is intuition and self love, self direction.
Wow.
All these other places, I'm open and therefore I'm being impacted by the conditioning field. So I'm sampling and inconsistent in the way that these energies work for me. So this integration channel is highly individual, meaning you know I'm always going to walk my to the beat of my own drum. And however, this where these hanging gates are, the 54, the 50, the 59, these are deeply tribal gates. And
Hmm.
so and that's, you know, my role in education and being able to create community is still important to me. But I need a huge amount of time alone, huge
Mm.
amount of time to you know, to create and to integrate ideas. But anyway, yeah, so here you can see the planets and each of these gate numbers, the 64 gates are the 64 themes. They all mean something. But I won't go into all of it right now. So let me just stop the share. And there we go. So that was it.
I am fascinated right now. I am fascinated. I can't wait to do work with you. This is blowing my mind. It's so weird that I have a picture of that. I'm not kidding. I don't even know. I don't know if it was like a company that posted it or
Wow.
someone. I don't know. I can't. I think I was driving probably. I was doing something and I just remember thinking I need to take a picture of this and go back to it. That is so funny. So here
Yeah.
we are going back to it.
And notice that's the thing. You were called to it. That's another thing. So you saw
Yes,
it. And
yes.
you know why? Because how this system was channeled and brought into reality was by a guy called Ra Uruhu.
Hmm.
And for 5 days in Ibiza, he was held down by what he calls the voice, and he was channeled this information, and there was what we call like a neutrino storm. So in the quantum field and in the atmosphere all the time there's neutrinos, and what happened in this day in 1987 where he received this information and then taught it for 30 years, um everybody on the planet. How old are you? Were you
38.
alive in
I have to
1987?
think about that. Like I'm 38. I'll be 39 next month. Every year I have to think about it.
So one of my teachers, Karen Curry Parker, who does quantum human design, and this is more designed for, I've learned both systems, but quantum human design is aimed at awakened beings, people that are already mostly
Interesting.
deconditioned, because we're now moving into how we can step into leadership, how we can create a story about our role in the planet. And so she has upgraded and evolved the language. She was a student of Ra. Ra's
Wow.
original language speaks to the not self, where, and the majority of the world are in a not self. Both of them are valuable. Both of them have information that we need. So there's no anyway. So the reason I say that is because she describes the the night that this neutrino storm happened and he received it. He said all of us received it. So when she first came into contact with the chart, she felt an immediate sort of connection with it, and
Huh.
it's the same as that you're describing, and it's because it's within us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed, and I was just talking to someone the other day about this. He was saying how he just felt so, whether it was a podcast on YouTube or whatever, he just felt so led or called to it. And I couldn't agree more. I tell people all the time, I feel like there were times throughout this, especially going through the dark night of the soul. I think I felt it the most. But this is
Mm,
happening all the time where I just randomly, or not, it all depends, but I will just be, I felt like a puppet, like, and
mm,
not in a bad way, but in like,
yeah.
you're gonna go look at this design chart now, and now
Yeah.
you're gonna look into quantum jumping, and you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
it was topics that I never dove into before, and then just suddenly like just felt so guided. There were a few times where I was dead asleep and woke up and knew exactly like what I needed to read or watch, or it
Yeah.
was crazy. Yeah, yeah. We
Fantastic.
really do know. We
Exactly.
just have to follow it.
One of the first early courses that I created in, because I've not worked. When I say I haven't worked, I have not had a job. I've only made money from my own business or from
I
my
love it.
since 2019, and for the whole of 2019 and 2020, money was just coming in miraculous ways. And that's the thing about, another key thing that I work with people, whether they're building a business or they're in a business and restructuring and pivoting, or if they're just coming because they've, like they're having an awakening and they want guidance, they want to align with themselves and step into alignment. um Hang on, I've just lost the flow. It was to do with, oh yeah, how we, when you surrender,
Mm,
all the support that you need as you follow your
yes.
dharma, it will come to you. So that's another thing, like literally stripping away. I love the ego. I'm not somebody who says that kill the ego. I'm somebody
Right.
who says kill the wounded ego, or
Mhm.
evolve the wounded, integrate the wounded ego, and
Yes.
still develop a strong sense of who you are and what you're here to do. And develop walking, neutrality and awareness and self awareness, of how you're operating. But when you've done your work, and you're creating and you're here living life and serving and doing your higher purpose, it's not really about that anymore. So what the point I'm trying to make was, you will be supported. So when you surrender
Mm,
to your mission, when you surrender to your purpose and your pathway, even if that's not being a light worker in a business, however your path is meant to be,
right.
whether that's living off grid and growing your own food and
Hmm.
helping people just on a day-to-day basis, as you surrender to your unique pathway, the universe will start to provide.
Mm. I love it. I love it. And it's so true. I was just talking about this the other day, how um we're 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 so conditioned to, again, going back to the mind and just where it's gotten to now. Now we're no longer living, we're not cavemen. We're not living for survival instincts. We're not, you know what I mean? We're not worried about where we're going to get our next meal and all of that. So now we're worrying about our 401k and a million things from a million miles away, and you know what I mean? We're not in the moment.
Yeah.
um Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, just that once you let go, it's because you can tell people like that you can trust it, but obviously you can't trust it until you experience it for yourself. And the
Mhm.
more you like it really, you can't see what the universe will bring you and do for you and what the flow looks like until you let it go. And that,
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part, because it's scary to just let go. But we miss out on the beautiful miracles that are
Mm.
taking place all day, every day, because we're 20 steps ahead of the
Yeah.
miracles, figuring it all out and planning and doing what we think we should be doing. And like you said, we don't we can do less. We can
Yes.
do less and it will all work out.
Yeah.
I wish I knew this at 5. No, I don't. I truly love, now looking back, I can laugh at everything.
Good.
It's like even the hardest stuff, it's just like it's just so funny. And you're grateful for the things that you've gone through, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Grace and
No
gratitude.
changing the past. Yeah, yeah.
No, and I do believe that Earth is a school. This is a philosophy that
Yes.
I subscribe to. That's
Yes.
true for me. And
Yes.
and we're here with a curriculum. We're here with a soul curriculum. We're here to evolve, and every single experience primes us for what we're here to do. So
I would love if you've heard just your opinion on it. If you've heard anything regarding Earth being like the hardest planet
yeah.
in terms of lessons and all. Yeah, yeah.
So
Which
the law.
I get it. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is
Unbelievable.
the thing, like, so mastery. I say, I help people master the plane of opposites, the
Hmm.
plane of duality, because once you start developing that emotional intelligence, when you start to learn the game of life, it's a
Yes.
game, it's fun,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. 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 I totally agree. Oh my gosh, Jess.
Hmm.
I have to bring you back. I have to.
Yeah,
And I definitely need to talk to you about going over my chart with you. That would be fascinating.
yeah.
I think this is like, I know this is like this is the perfect timing for it all. Like I said, I was so drawn into that photo that I took of that. I mean, this is and, and I didn't even know who you were. We have a mutual friend. Like, shout out Paul.
Yeah. Oh my God, you know
Appreciate
how I
you.
even met Paul? I met Paul like in
In Thailand,
2010.
right?
Thailand, yeah.
I
One
dated Paul when I was 18.
really.
Paul's dated everybody, so yeah, no surprise there.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he sent me your info and he was like, you would love her. And I looked at your I think it was your Instagram, and I was just like, yes, I'm in. So truly, thank you, Paul, because I can already tell this is going somewhere. I'm sorry, but you're not getting rid of me, Jess.
Oh, I love you. I want you in my world.
You say that now. Okay. Gosh, I have so many questions, but I will actually
We could do
organize
it.
myself
Okay.
better when we have you back on. But I would love if there's I just any final words, anything that you think the audience, the world just would really benefit from hearing right now.
Know thyself. The answers are within. It's a cliche thing, but really just be present. Open your eyes to face your shadows. Open your eyes to the miraculous,
Mm,
the miracles every day.
mm.
Know who you are and follow, and tune in to get your answers. And if you are called and drawn to human design or gene keys, follow that path. But ultimately, life is a miracle. It's a blessing. You are a genius. You are perfectly designed, and enjoy the ride.
Ah, I love it. I love it. Jess, you're awesome.
Thank you.
You are awesome. I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad we did this. Thank you so much. I am
Thank you.
blown away. Now it's so funny because there's Pandora's boxes. It's a big box. And you think you get to a point and you think like you've seen at least like the tops of all of the rabbit holes. And this alone, this hour alone with you is, yeah, I can already tell this is just going to be so intriguing. Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank
Me too.
you so much.
No, it's a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me. And look how aligned that is as well.
Mhm.
So Paul's a generator. He's a Manny Gen.
Oh,
He's and so again, last little word actually, like how the world is really going to change, is the partnership of generator and projector,
mm,
understanding how they operate in concert and not against each other. So
mm,
the projector zooms is designed to zoom in to that generator G center and understand how to guide the energy. So in quantum human design, they're called the orchestrator because they are here to be intelligent and to manage energy. But many projectors are not in the right role, or they so it doesn't work, and then there's all this. But when a generator can have that projector helping to guide their process or whatever, and the thing is though as well, the projector has to be recognized and then invited. So that's a
mm.
key piece of strategy that we haven't really gone down into. But
Interesting.
yeah, and the generator has to wait to respond, and so to be so it can so that it can do its work in a penta or a group. But the point is, Paul referred me to you. You saw my work, you recognized, you invited, and so this is the aligned way. And I remember I immediately my spleen said yes. So
Yes.
I call it the tremor of truth, where I just get my physical body. And so I didn't even look. I was just like, yes. And I'll look at everything afterwards because I know. And
That's
that's the thing, it takes
awesome.
away all
Yeah.
of that mind shit because you just know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know
Yeah.
it's a yes, it's a no. And then
Yes.
when I got the Zoom, it was 333. And I'm like, thanks,
That
guys.
is so funny. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Ah, Jess, thank you. Paul, thank you. Everyone
Yeah.
who's watching, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
I am
you.
blown away. Unbelievable.